gonna share my joy, share my love, give it boundlessly. My religion is kindness, my church is nature, my God is a feeling that lives deep inside. My job is to be conscious, my path is forgiveness, my religion is kindness, and I practice it every day. Yeah. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Then Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came running after. She said, Jack, tell me, what can I do to help ease your mind? He said, hold my hand and just be kind, and I know I'll be fine. My religion is kindness, my church is nature, my God is a feeling, live deep inside. My job is to be conscious, my path is forgiveness, my religion is kindness, and I practice it every day. My religion is kindness, my church is nature, my God is a feeling that lives deep inside. My job is to be conscious, my path is forgiveness, my religion is kindness, and I practice it every day. Every day. My religion is kindness, and I practice it every day. Every day. My religion is kindness, and I'm gonna practice it every day.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Music City. It's so awesome to see all your smiling faces this morning. We are going to start off with doing 2 songs back to back. Going to get our energy up and ready to focus on a really good service today. It may be cloudy outside, but the sun's shining in this room. So everybody, let's stand up and sing. There was a time in my life thought I'd have to do it all for myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. Didn't know the love of God was at hand. Now I can say, if you're discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you gotta let it go. Let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free. I for God. Stand in my truth. Something that I'm learning how to do every day. I'm not gonna give in to this world's misery. I've learned a lesson that always sets me free. In any situation, the best thing I can do is to know who I am and let that light shine through. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna stand in my truth and let my troubles go. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna whisper a prayer to claim my power to make it so. Make it so. And I will not get caught up in other people's stuff. No. Keeping my focus for me is quite enough. When I'm feeling cornered, I get still and breathe and remember who I am and all that I believe. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna stand in my truth and let my troubles go. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna whisper a prayer to claim my power to make it so. Make it so. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna stand in my truth and let my troubles go. I'm gonna stand in my truth. Stand in my truth. I'm gonna whisper a prayer to claim my power to make it so. Make it so. I'm gonna whisper a prayer to claim my power to make it so. Make it so. I'm gonna whisper a prayer to claim my power to make it so. Make it so. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We can go ahead and adjourn the kids right now. If you're headed towards the youth department, head that way.
Good morning, Unity of Music City.
Good morning.
Let's begin today's portion of our service by taking a deep, centering breath. Today's centering statement is, I honor the unique path of each person's spiritual journey. For all human beings, life is a series of questions and a journey to find the truth for ourselves. My spiritual path is the most important part of my life. The more I grow in spirit, the more I understand myself as a human being trying to live on this planet Earth. The more I discover myself through spirit, the more love and understanding I can show others. The more I focus on my spiritual path, the easier it is to honor others who are seeking their spiritual truth, because we are all focusing on uncovering our highest and best selves. Now please repeat these affirmations after me. I honor the path laid before me and accept the path of others. I am curious and open to learn from others' perspectives. As I allow myself to have my own experience of the divine, I allow others to have theirs. And so it is.
Well, I was going to tell you who we are, but that's who we are in a nutshell right there. That is Unity of Music City, a place for authentic transformation. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we're here to love you. We're here to support you. We're here to be there for you. And we are here to collectively share the wisdom of the ages, the wisdom of the universe with each other. So welcome, one and all. I want to say a big welcome to everyone who is watching online. Welcome. You are a part of this service, too. We feel your energy along with all these smiling faces here. So welcome. Sherry, do we have any announcements?
We do. We do. Good morning. Our youth program, as you saw, Exit the Room, is open to all youth. If you have a young person who would like to share in some playful, spiritual, uplifting activities, please see Stephanie. She was the one with the ears on today. There is a wish list on our website and link in the weekly happenings for needed items for our youth ministry. We thank you in advance for reviewing this list and for your participation. We are thankful and appreciative. We are also looking for monthly volunteers for our youth ministry. Please speak to Stephanie if your youth program speaks. If our youth program speaks to you, then talk to her about your curiosity and that you might be interested in being part of that. We're hosting a fall festival gathering on Saturday, this coming Saturday, November the 5th, from 2 to 5, rain or shine. So fortunately, we can shift in if we need to. Isn't that nice? Furry friends are welcome. So if you have a furry friend you want to bring to be social, it's always good for them to have social life, just like us. There will be a potluck, activities, and a fire and drum circle. Bring a dish to share and a chair to sit in. Don't forget your drum or guitar to strum. So if you have a guitar, then, bring it. The Sacred Community Action Ministry will be collecting gently worn shoes for our Souls for Souls or canned goods, dry goods. Examples of that might be all the non-perishables, all those things that could hang around in a box for a little while or on the shelf at these pantries. We work directly with the Hermitage United Methodist Church. Their pantry is connected to Second Harvest Food Bank. So we have a number of different things, programs that we work with in the community, in the Sacred Community Action Ministry. So if you're interested or curious about that and want to know a little bit more about how you might be able to step up and serve, or just to connect with other people in a real sacred way, face to face, hand to hand, heart to heart, this is the program for you. So come see me. You can, see me after church, or you can email me or text me, or somebody will give you my telephone number. I can give you that. Just give me a call, and we'll talk about it if you have questions. There will be a full moon gathering right here at Wren Road on November the 8th. Is that correct? Okay, beginning at 7 p.m. So bring a chair, a drum, crystals, sage, or whatever calls to you. We'll build the fire. All right. There will also be a town hall membership meeting on November the 13th, following the service. What date was that? November 13th. Okay. Well, are you sure? Okay. November 13th. Okay, so you're cheating. You got help. That's all right. That's good. It's good to have. It's a yes. It is a potluck. It's a potluck. More food. All right. I'm in. So it's following the service. So remember that and be a part of it. Question: is it just for members, or can? Oh, so it's not just a membership thing. People don't have to be a member to be there. Correct. Okay. Great. Who are? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. There are still some items in there's a little room to the left as you exit the building, the sanctuary here. Some items that if they speak to you and you would like to take them with you, you may. Or if you know someone who might need some of those items that could be helpful to them, please help yourself. It's free, and so check that out as you leave. That's it for today.
Alexa, remind me to bring shoes and canned goods to Fall Fest on Saturday. Now you're going to get a reminder, so that's probably a good thing. All right, it's time to sing again. It's time for the monthly mantra. This is the last Sunday we're going to be singing this. I'm sure it'll creep up at some point in the future. We'll find a good spot for it. We come together in the name of love. So let's just all stand up and sing it. Take a look at the person next to you. Say, God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. 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 In the name of love, we come together. 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 In the name of love. Now look at the person next to you. Say, I recognize the God in you. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. 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 In the name of love, we come together. 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 In the name of love, from every walk of life, every creed and color, in kinship we unite, in honor of the God and each other. Take a look at the person next to you. Say, namaste, I bow to you. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. 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 In the name of love, we come together. 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 In the name of love, we come together. 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 In the name of love, we come together. 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 In the name of love. Yes, we do. All right, thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, everybody. Let's come together in a meditative space right now, shall we? As we ease into our chairs, settle back and maybe take a deep breath, releasing what is not serving us and calling into us all that will. Lower your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Let the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. They say that we are in the time of the thin veil. We are told that we have reached the point on the wheel of the year when the curtain dividing the living and the already gone is at its thinnest. And as we enter into the silence here in just a moment, I encourage you to think of someone who has gone before. If there's one experience we all share as human beings, it is the experience of loss. But as spiritual beings, we know that nothing real is ever lost. And the energy of that beloved one is always just on the other side, loving you, watching you, sending their heart energy to you. So for just a moment in the silence, whoever it is who has come into your mind, they have also come into your energy. They are here, visiting with you in this moment. You can tell them what you need to. I love you. I miss you. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the energy of my existence in this life, and thank you for still being here with me in this moment. While that veil is thin, commune with that one who is in your heart. For there is only God, and the part of them that is God and the part of you that is God has never been separated. So be in that energy now, in the silence. In the silence. Thank you to the God who showed up in my life as my grandmother. Thank you to the divine energy that has brought every bit of love into my life. Thank you for the understanding of unity and oneness. Thank you that I can know that loss does not exist on the spiritual plane. That I am always and forever whole with all the love I have ever known in my life. And so it is. And so it is.
I am in God. God is in me. My life is God expressing. I am in God. God is in me. All that I am flows to and from God. I am in God. God is in me. My life is God expressing. I am in God. God is in me. All that I am flows to and from God. All that I am flows to and from God.
Well, I'm so sorry.
Got everybody crying.
You know, one of the parts of the service that I never try to plan or put any energy around ahead of time is the meditation. I like it to be as organic as it can be. And I suppose I was looking at the Day of the Dead decorations over here, and of course I've been thinking about all of that energy, and I thought, what a wonderful time. It is sad, but it's sweet, isn't it? It's bitter, but it's joyful. And you know, I love the line, I'm probably going to mess it up here, grief is proof that you loved, right? Grief is proof that you loved. And so when we are sad about the loss of people in our lives, that's proof of having experienced a great love. So it takes authenticity and bravery to go to those places. Today, we're talking about being authentic and brave. I was just going to say stand in your truth, but since Ryan had already covered that with the music there, we're going to talk about being authentic and brave, because being authentic sometimes requires that you are brave, right? There's a great song by Melissa Etheridge called Brave and Crazy. I almost called it that, right? Because sometimes it feels like, or there are times when other people will claim a little craziness when we're being authentic and we're being brave. When I was looking for a picture that would go along with that, I found this one, and for some reason, it said it all to me. And it reminded me of one of the reasons why so many people are drawn to stories like Harry Potter, right, and Lord of the Rings, because it takes a small person to be authentic and brave, and they overcome everything by doing that, right? That's the story of each one of those. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get there in a roundabout way, but everything is connected today. So first off, of course, happy Halloween. It is Halloween. Halloween, of course, is a word that means hallowed evening, All Hallows Eve. It's actually the beginning of sundown tomorrow will be the beginning of the celebration on November 1st, right? And so it's All Saints' Day. It's also, of course, Day of the Dead. Isn't it interesting how all of these different honoring holidays just happen to spring up at the same time with the same energy? I wonder how that happened. But certainly, here's the thing I want you to know. Halloween is a Christian holiday. That's what it is. I'm reminded, every Halloween, I'm always reminded of those years in 1982, the fall of 1982, when I was a freshman at Trevecca Nazarene College, and we had a dorm mom who was super, super, super happy about Jesus all the time. And she thought Halloween was Satan himself getting a toehold in. And so she tried to start this little groundswell among the students that we would not do Halloween this year. Now, I don't know if it is still that way or not, but in 1982, Halloween was the one night out of the 365 nights a year when the girls got to go in the boys' dorm and the boys got to go in the girls' dorm legally, right? I think it was something like, I don't know, between 6 and 7:30, the guys will come trick-or-treating in the girls' dorms. We'd have all of our doors decorated and the hallways would be all spooktacular. And then from like 7:30 to 9, do they still do it that way? Is it still the way it goes? Yeah. 7:30 to 9, the girls would go over to the boys' dorms, and we would learn then that the boys had a lot more room in their dorms. Nicer bathrooms. Yeah. It's patriarchy, people. Anyway. So, that being said, we were celebrating All Hallows Eve. That's what it is. This is a real thing. I just need you to know that that is a real thing. You can go to JesusWeen.com, which is problematic in and of itself. And you can join the movement to replace Halloween with Jesusween. I love on the bottom right there where it says, a Christian gift-giving festival. Don't we already have one of those? Isn't it called Christmas? Right? So it happens this way, right? Because, of course, so many of our holidays have been borrowed. We share between religions. We share with each other. And we honor the same, just in the same way that all across the world harvest festivals sprung up at the same time because it was the harvest, right? So at the same time, when the earth is going to sleep, we think about that thinning of the veil between the living and the dead. And it's why the Christians celebrate the saints that have gone on November 1st, right? So Samhain is the Celtic religion. It's the Celtic celebration. If you want to have the kind of Halloween where you can have Batwing potion, you'll want to celebrate Samhain. It's a Gaelic festival that marks the end of the harvest season, the beginning of winter, or the dark half of the year. And there are some historians that believe it may be more aligned with actually moving herds to the winter pasture, because the harvest is done on November 1st. But the herds, this would have been about the time that they would have, in Ireland and Scotland, would have been moving herds to winter pastures. It's one of the 4 Gaelic seasonal festivals, Imil, Beltan, Lunasa, and Samhain, that we honor. And of course, it's about halfway between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. Now, this, just because I can, because there's not another church in Middle Tennessee that's going to show you a picture of a neo-pagan Samhain celebration on Sunday morning, right? And so neo-paganism has been something that has been on the rise, as many of you know, over the last 40, 50 years around the world, and in Western culture especially. It's a collective term. I'm going to get there, by the way. I'm getting back to brave and authentic. It's a collective term for religious movements that have been influenced by various historical pagan beliefs or elements of folk religion or folk magic. And it's this big catch-all term. It actually became an academic field of study in the 90s, which is when everything becomes real, right? It becomes real when it's an academic study. And so it became an academic field of study in the 90s, and some academicians treat it as one religion with lots of different kind of denominations, if you will. Others treat it as a collection of various different types of religions. But nonetheless, it contains a whole lot. It started off kind of in the 60s and the 70s with the goddess movement. By the way, thank you for the few people who are dressed up. Annette told me she was dressed up, but when you are already a hippie, we don't buy this as a costume. All right? We don't buy it as a costume.
Fresh out of my regular rotation.
That's right, fresh out of the regular rotation. So the goddess movement and druidry and eco-paganism and Wiccanism, and then we got all those folk magic cultures from different places across the world, Kemetism, the Egyptian pagan religion, Celtic religion out of Ireland, the Norse. Of course, that also connected with ancient traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism and Shintoism and Native American spirituality that had been around for eons, right? It always tends to lean toward a kind of polytheism. We talked about this a little bit last week. Who is the God that you need right now, right? It's okay to see the many different facets of God as one and as separate. And one thing that kind of tends to unite neo-paganism is a kind of a kind of unity in diversity. That there's a diversity and there's a unity. And just because I learned it, if I learn something, you learn something. This is the Slavic god named Dajbog. I'm going to say that I have that correct. Dajbog. He is a major god of Slavic mythology. The name means the giving god. And that right there is a table of celebration. There's actually a movement in Ukraine that operates as a rare example of neo-pagan monotheism, and their only god is Dajbog. So there you have it. I learned something, you learned something. So along with this kind of rise of neo-paganism, this kind of new awareness, we also saw, married with that, a rise in openness about sexuality, right? A 2021 article from the Religion News Service shared the results of a study from Dickinson College that showed neo-paganism to be the most LGBTQ-affirming faith tradition in the U.S. As a matter of fact, if you go to the neo-paganism page in Wikipedia, they have a whole section on LGBTQ paganism. And the very first sentence says, the Western LGBT community, often marginalized and or outright rejected by Abrahamic predominant mainstream religious establishments, has often sought spiritual acceptance and association in neo-pagan religious spiritual practice. In other words, those people who were looking for the authenticity in themselves needed to find a safe space in which to do that, a place that welcomed them, that celebrated them, that honored them. And we see these two kind of movements growing together at the same time, even though just like neo-paganism has its roots in ancient paganism, and homosexuality was not invented in the 1960s, right? In the same kind of way, they both found a new flowering because they gained, I think, some strength from each other in that ability to stand in their truth together, right? Standing in their truth, because coming out requires you to be authentic and very brave. And I talk about that this morning in the sense that I think probably every one of us has a coming out story. It may not be about our sexuality. It may be about our spirituality. It may be about the way we see the world. It may be about our politics. With some of our families, we had to come out about our politics, right? We hold something near and dear that is more true to who we are, and our family doesn't understand that, and all of us have a kind of brave coming out story. I, even late in life, had to come out as someone who likes to wear socks with Birkenstocks. And usually you have to come out to the person closest to you. And I still am trying to get Nikki Conley to accept the fact that socks with Birkenstocks is a valid look. So I wore them today just so I could be authentic and brave. Stand in my truth. By the way, that symbol alone right there, that symbol alone was so very clearly established in my brain as a child as the mark of Satan. It was one step away from just having a 666 tattooed on your forehead, right? And I remember as I began to explore different spiritual traditions, I remember reading about the pentagram and reading about its origins and reading about its meanings and thinking to myself, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful what that stands for. Those 5 elements linked with humankind, right? An outstretched arms and legs of a human being, and all of the things that are contained therein. And so I've tried over the years to reclaim that for myself. But that stuff that gets in the way of us being authentic is so deep that still, I have to think about it every time I see it. I have to try to put it back into perspective for myself every time I see it. I have students sometimes who will come in with a pentagram on a necklace or something. And every time I have to shift and think about it. And then I go, oh, cool, right? But it goes so deep, and it takes a while for us to figure out who we are and learn how to stand up for that. The Pew Research Center, which is one of my favorite sources for information on religion, has a chart on Christians and the religiously unaffiliated. Now, just to put it in perspective, on the far left is 1972, on the far right is like 2019. The red is people who identify as Christian. The black at the bottom is religiously unaffiliated, which I think includes a whole lot of people who fit into this category of neo-paganism. We have a changing culture. I'm not putting that out there as a good thing or a bad thing. But I do think this reflects not a less spiritual culture, but a more spiritually authentic culture, a braver spiritual culture that we're trying to create. And this kind of authenticity gives a kind of personal power that becomes a very deep peace. I remember when I was in my 20s, and the first time that I figured out, hey, guess what? I think I'm gay. To which most of the people closest to me said, yeah, we knew that, right? But very quickly, like literally within about 30 days, I went from that realization to, I'm not going to be anything I'm ashamed of. I'm going to own who I am. And that was luck more than bravery. It was kind of ignorance at times more than bravery. But it was my own kind of bravery, and I moved forward. And as I met people who were struggling with that question, whether about their family or about their job or whoever it was, when I met people who were struggling with that question, the only thing I had to say was, listen, you got to do what feels right to you, but it's so free. The freedom you get from having no secrets is incomparable. There's nothing that compares to the freedom that comes from having no secrets. Nothing to hide. Because the truth we hold within us that can't be exposed is one of the heaviest weights in our beingness. It weighs heavy. And letting it go lightens us up. This is still a thing. We were just with some friends this week, and a friend of mine, bearing down on 40, I know, that sounds so young, doesn't it? Gosh. Was talking about coming out to her mother. And the interesting thing was, she said, I was expecting to go home after that and to have the feelings that I typically can have. You know how you ever have those feelings when you're alone? Why did I say that? What an idiot. Oh my gosh, they must think I'm stupid. I don't know. Anybody else beat yourself up when you get alone about something? Okay. Never, never. Carolyn's for you. Yeah. Carolyn is going to become all of our guru now because I have not figured that out. And she said, I was waiting for that moment on the couch where I'm sitting there going, what have I done? Oh my. And she said, it never came. I just felt light, and I just felt free. And whatever comes because of that, whatever the fallout that comes because of that, it'll be fallout that happens from a place of peace for me, right? Be fallout that happens from a place of peace. So I don't typically plan out a lot of services in advance. I wait until Spirit gives me something that is on my heart to say. And it was about this Wednesday when it came to me what I wanted to talk about this week. And as I began talking about this, I began thinking about this authenticity and the bravery it takes to be authentic and to come out fully into the honesty of living your authentic life. I thought about this guy, Daniel in the lion's den. This is a painting by Rubens from the, I don't know, whatever he was, 18th century, 17th century. But at any rate, Daniel in the lion's den. And so I went back and I did a deep dive into the book of Daniel. And I learned some things. Now, Daniel is a book in the Bible that contains a couple of stories that if you were raised in Sunday school, you know these stories, right? Because they are vivid and imaginative and they're great for kids. So they're all going to learn the stories that take place in Daniel. But I had never, since Sunday school, sometimes those stories that we learn very, very early, we never go back and revisit. We know them so well, we think, that we don't go back and say, wait a minute, what really happened? What is really going on here? So I first went into a little bit of a deep dive on the book of Daniel itself. The book of Daniel was written in the 2nd century BCE, about 200 years before the era of Jesus. But it's set in the 6th century BCE. So think right now, if you were going to write down stories that you heard from 1622, right? That's the same time frame we're talking about here. But these were tales. The authorship is not known. It wasn't Daniel. Daniel didn't write this. It's considered to be a product of wisdom circles. That's exactly what I read when I looked it up. It's considered to be a product of wisdom circles. In other words, all of those ancient, wise people sitting around the fire orally sharing these stories for hundreds of years. And it was likely, theologians believe, historians believe, an educated Jewish man, knowledgeable in Greek learning, who'd heard these tales and decided to compile them into a collection. And he used Daniel as a name because Daniel was known as this, having a reputation for being a wise seer. It's kind of a name that kind of implies a wise seer. So was there an exact Daniel in these stories? Not that we know of. These are tales meant to inform, meant to teach. And the book of Daniel is divided into 2 parts primarily. The first part is chapters 1 through 6. It's written mostly in Aramaic. And it's comprised of 6 court tales. They're tales of the king's court. And chapters 7 through 12 was written mostly in Hebrew, and those have 4 apocalyptic visions. And someone along the line put them together and said, we're going to call this book Daniel. There are additional sections of it that are not included. They were not canonized into the Christian version of the Bible. They were put into the Jewish Torah, by the way. And those, I had to share these because these are the Prayer of Azariah and Song of the 3 Holy Children. That's one of them. The story of Susanna, that's the second one. I don't know if it's Oh Susanna, Don't You Cry For Me or not, but. And the third one is Bel and the Dragon. And I'm thinking we need to go reclaim that sucker and bring it back in. Bel and the Dragon. So the 2 stories I want to talk about are in these first 6 chapters, and I want to focus on those 2 stories, but first a little backstory. So this is kind of the kingdom of Babylon. So if you see the little yellow square, I don't have a pointer on this, do I?
Yes, you do.
I do. Well, I'm not going to figure it out right now. The little yellow square down there on the far right, that's the ancient city of Babylon. It doesn't exist anymore except in ruins. It's about 55 miles south of modern-day Baghdad in Iraq, right? And if you see way over here, over the crescent there, that's the Fertile Crescent, by the way. Over that crescent there, if you go down to the bottom right, you see Jerusalem right there next to the Dead Sea. That's the Dead Sea right there. And up above is the little Sea of Galilee. And so there's Jerusalem. And so what happened was, this story starts in the 3rd year of the reign of King, what's his name? Jeroboam or something. I can't remember. It's written down here somewhere. 3rd year of his reign, he was the ruler of Judah down here in Jerusalem, and he was a horrible king. He was bad. And King Nebuchadnezzar II was the king of Babylon, and he came over here and he conquered all this land. And so what he did was he asked his palace staff to find some Israelites of nobility and to bring them into his palace, into his court, find handsome and healthy young men who are intelligent and well-educated, who might be good prospects for leadership in government. And among these were 4 young men who are the main characters of our story. So our 4 main characters include Daniel. This is the part of the show where you're looking at the program, all right? Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Otherwise known, now as soon as they're brought into King Nebuchadnezzar's palace, they are given Chaldean names, they're given Babylonian names, and they're named, Daniel is renamed Belteshazzar. Hananiah is renamed Shadrach, Mishael is Meshach, and Azariah is Abednego. Now these names all have meanings. For instance, Hananiah in Jewish, Hebrew, get it? Now, I guess it would have been Hebrew at that time, means Yah is gracious. Yah as in Yahweh, right? Yah is gracious. His name was changed to Shadrach because the new king of Babylon didn't recognize this religion, and he named him Shadrach, which means under the command of Aku, the moon god. Right? Mishael, his name meant who is what El is. I love this. El is a word for God, right? Who is what El is. It's almost like the divine in me beholds the divine in you, Mishael. His name was changed to Meshach, which means who is as Aku is, the moon god, right? Azariah means Yah has helped. God has helped me. Abednego means slave of the god Nabu, the god of literacy and wisdom. Here's the one I really love. Daniel is a word that means God is my judge. El is my judge. The judge of me is God. Belteshazzar means Bel protects his life. Bel was one of the pagan gods of Babylon, right? So remember that, God is my judge. The way this whole thing starts is that King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He has this dream, and he calls all of his magicians and fortune tellers and astrologers, and he says, listen, here's what I want you to do. Because I want to know that you're telling me the truth, I want you to tell me both the dream and then interpret it for me. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You tell me the dream and then interpret it for me. And they say, well, that's impossible. And he said, nope, you got to tell me my dream and then interpret it for me. And they say, no, that's impossible. They can't do it. And so he decided, that's it. I'm going to order all of the wise men of Babylon killed, which would have included Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That night in a vision, Daniel asked God to give him the answer, give him the dream and the interpretation. And he woke up the next morning, he says, I've got it, call off the execution. And he's brought before the king. And Daniel says, look, I'm not smarter than anybody else, but God gave me the dream and the interpretation. You dreamed about this huge statue with the head made of gold and the chest of arms made of silver, the belly and the hips of bronze, the legs of iron, the feet of iron and clay. And then a stone was carved out of a mountain. It was thrown at the feet, and it broke the feet, and the whole thing fell to pieces. And the interpretation is, you're the most powerful king on earth, Nebuchadnezzar. You're the gold, but other kingdoms will come along and take your place, kingdoms inferior to yours, each one more inferior. It will all crumble. Now, here's the interesting thing. There are several dream interpretations that Daniel does during this, and every single one of them is not in favor of the king. Every single one of them is not in favor of the king, but every single time he gets promoted. because of it, because he was authentic and brave and he spoke his truth. I can't tell you a lie. God gave this to me. This is what's true. And when he does, even though he's predicting a downfall, the king promotes him, right? And so he promotes him to this high position, and Daniel says, oh, by the way, king, I've got 3 friends over here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Can we give them a little boost too? And so they're promoted right along with Daniel, and they continue to climb up the statue. Yes. So, in the meantime, even though Nebuchadnezzar is really excited about this God of Daniel's and how wonderful it is, Nebuchadnezzar at some point probably forgets, and he says, I'm going to build a huge statue to myself. It's going to be 90 feet high. It's going to be made out of gold. It's going to be out on the plains there. And I'm ordering everyone who's anyone to show up for the dedication of this statue. And by the way, when you hear the music, when you hear the lutes and the zithers and the lyres and whatever else they had, when you hear the music play, you must fall down and worship this image. And whoever does not fall down and worship this image is going to be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, Daniel is not mentioned in this story. He's not here. I think he might have been on vacation in the Bahamas or somewhere. He was celebrating after being, promoted. So it's just the 3 men here. And so some of the astrologers who were upset, some of the wise men who were upset about the Hebrews coming along and taking the choice positions, they told on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so those 3 were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, are you not going to worship my statue? And they said, no, we're not going to worship your statue. That is not true to who we are. And he said, I'm going to have to throw you in the furnace. That's the law I made. And they said, if you're going to throw us in the furnace, then do it. We won't bow to your statue. We believe that God will protect us. But even if he doesn't, we won't bow to the statue. That's brave. I don't know if I could do that. I'll be honest. There's a flaming furnace right there, and they're fixing to throw you in it. I might pray to just about anything you bring to me at that moment. Truth be told, right? But to stand in their truth in that moment is brave. And so Nebuchadnezzar was furious that they couldn't force their hand. Obviously, power. You won't do what I say. He had them thrown in, and he ordered the ovens. Do you remember this? He ordered the furnace to burn 7 times hotter. And in fact, it was so hot that the soldiers who threw them in died, because the flames were so hot that the people who had to get close enough to get them in there, they died. Right? And so then Nebuchadnezzar looks in, and he says, well, didn't we put 3 men in there? I see there's 4. And by the way, all of these pictures were made after God had children, and so they all make the 4th one look like Jesus, right? What actually is said, Nebuchadnezzar says there's a 4th man, and he looks like a son of the gods. He looks like a son of the gods. And those people are just walking around in there. How are they not just burnt to flame, into a cinder immediately? So Nebuchadnezzar calls them out, and when he calls them out, not a hair is singed. In fact, they don't even smell like smoke. Right? They were completely protected. And I want to put forth there, even though this is a myth, this is a metaphor, this is something to tell us, what I tell you is this: the honesty of your authentic beingness is a shield like none other. And it can protect you from things you don't even think you could be protected from. Now, what ends up happening after this is we have a little break. This is written like poetry, by the way. I'm not going to get into the discussion of the type of poetry. It's a chiasm, by the way, a type of poetic formula that is written in. But in between these 2 parallel stories, we have 2 smaller stories where Daniel predicts that Nebuchadnezzar is going to become an animal and wander around for 7 years, and his nails are going to grow long. I remember distinctly in Sunday school seeing the picture of and being scared to death, right? That I could wander around. I was going to eat grass for 7 years. And sure enough, that happened. And what happened when Nebuchadnezzar came back and got his kingdom back? He promoted Daniel, even though he predicted that. And then there's a new king that comes along. And this king, Belshazzar, I believe his name is, this king is sitting there partying with his friends when a disembodied hand, comes out of nowhere and starts writing on the wall, where we get the phrase, the writing on the wall, right? If there's nothing more Halloweenish than a disembodied hand writing on a wall. You see how I'm tying all this together. So he writes on the wall, and nobody can tell what it's King Belshazzar, and they call on Daniel, and Daniel comes up. I can tell you what it says. It says that God has numbered your days, and your kingdom's going to be divided, and you're going to fall. That's what it says. The kingdom's going to be divided up between the Medes and the Persians. And you know what? He's just told Belshazzar he's going to lose his kingdom, and Belshazzar is so grateful for the honesty that he promotes him again. He's one of the top 3 people in the whole of Babylon, right? And sure enough, it happened that night. That night, Belshazzar was murdered, and King Darius takes the throne. So this new king, Darius, is so impressed with Daniel that he eventually puts him in charge of the whole kingdom. I'm making you're my guy. You're in charge of all these the other vice regents and the governors got jealous. And they tried to find dirt on Daniel. They couldn't find it, so they convinced Darius. They went to Darius. I don't know if this works or not in real life, but apparently you can butter up someone in power and get them to do what you want. So they went to Darius, and they buttered him up, and they said, listen, we think you should pass a law. You're such a great and mighty king. You should pass a law that for 30 days, no one is to pray to anyone else, any god or any mortal, except you. People should only pray to you for 30 days. And he said, that sounds like a grand idea. And he passed that law. And there's something about the Persian and Mede laws of that day that when the king said them, it was as if they were cast in stone. Even the king himself couldn't back away from this law. Well, Daniel had some windows in the upstairs of his house, and he would, right before those windows, pray 3 times a day to his God. And he got caught, and the conspirators turned him in. And the king was not happy about this. He didn't want to do this. Daniel was his guy. But he had to live up to his own law that he passed. And so he said, all right, put him in the lion's den and seal it up. I'm going to seal it with my own ring. King couldn't sleep all night long. He was so, this is the only guy who's ever told me the truth. How many times have we seen that happen in our own lives, where the source of the truth is the one that gets locked away, right? This is the only one who's told me the truth. The king could not sleep all night long. He tossed and turned. He tried changing the number on his sleep number bed. It just didn't help at all. He got up the next morning, and he immediately, first thing in the morning, he went and he had it unsealed, and Daniel was completely unharmed. He brought him out. And then, this is kind of the icky part of the story, but remember, it's before God had kids, so he was not as gentle back then. And the icky part is that the conspirators who had turned on Daniel and had him put in there, the king ordered that the conspirators and their wives and their children all be thrown into the lion's den. And it says that before they even hit the ground, the lions were tearing them apart, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is a story of not doing what others insist on when it goes against your own internal guidance. Daniel in the lion's den is a story of doing what one is compelled to do when it comes from your inner guidance. Every dream interpretation in this book is an example of speaking the truth as you know it, even when it's not what someone wants to hear. Whether you are holding your ground or taking a stand, you have to do this from the truth that resonates from within you. Whether you're holding up or standing up or speaking up or showing up, all of those ways are ways of being authentic and brave, and we have to listen to our inner guidance. There have been times in my life when my inner guidance was just be still, be quiet. Like when my father on a phone call about 2 years before he died told me, watch out for those new age people. That's Satan trying to get his foot in the door. And I decided the best thing to do was just to keep my mouth shut. That was the way. I knew. And I protected myself by not even having that conversation. But other conversations I needed to have. And when you do this from the truest part of you, you create a kind of peace and power. A combination of peace and power that is undeniable. So I know those of you who like quotes, you're saying, I haven't seen a dang quote yet, Deb. Get your camera ready. Oprah Winfrey. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we have. The most powerful tool we have. That's pretty big. I don't know if you know this or not, but Oprah Winfrey is the knower of all things. And I'm only half joking there because I think she's pretty darn smart and savvy and aware, both self-aware and aware of human nature. And if, after all of I guarantee you, if you had hosted as many shows as she has on the human condition, you'd be smart about it too. And at the end of the day, what she knows is the most powerful tool we have available to us is to speak our truth. Maggie Kuhn said, "Speak the truth even if your voice shakes." Maggie Kuhn was a woman who at the age of 65 in 1970 was told that she had to retire from her job with I believe, the Presbyterian Church. And she began an organization called the Gray Panthers. And the Gray Panthers almost single-handedly changed the conversation around how we treat elderly people in our society. Paired with that, I don't know if she predates the AARP, but they certainly got a big boost from her if she didn't. Because she's the one who said, "I'm not dead, I'm 65. I've got a lot left to do." And she kept doing it for the next, I believe, almost 20 years, running this organization. Speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. And I love that so much because sometimes my voice does shake. Sometimes I'm so overcome in the moment, knowing how brave I have to be to say what I need to say. Brene Brown, courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Just showing up and letting ourselves be seen for who we are. It takes bravery to be authentic. It takes courage to show up and let ourselves be seen. And finally, from one of the godfathers of unity, Ralph Waldo Emerson, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. To be yourself is the greatest accomplishment. We're a place of authentic transformation. And that means we are a place of people brave enough to listen to their heart and to step into their authenticity, to have the courage to show up and let yourselves be seen, to speak your truth, even with shaking voices, to those people you need to declare it to. And if our greatest tool is speaking our truth, then the greatest tool maker is our growing self-awareness, the increasing communion with our higher self, the divine presence that I am and you are. Namaste.
And I didn't plan on singing Standing Your Truth today. It just kind of worked out that way. But I do want to say how much I love that song. And it's a song that the choir, when we had a choir, we did that, once or twice a year. And I've just rediscovered that song, and I just read the lyrics to that song, and I think, this is something we need to really just absorb into the cells of our body, stand in our truth. So I'm so appreciative of Judy Blackwelder for writing that song. So we begin each service in thanksgiving. We end each service in gratitude. So let's take a moment to be grateful for each other. Let's take a moment to be grateful for this great new spiritual community that we are all helping to build. Grateful for the opportunity to give back to the potential that is this spiritual community. And we give of our time, we give of our talents, and we give our treasures, and we give from the depths of our hearts to the bottom of our souls. You can see the different ways to give. I would also encourage you to think about, in addition to giving of your regular tithes and offerings, to give to the needs that we have in front of us, the needs of developing this into a beautiful sanctuary, paying off the bills for the youth department, the bathroom, all of the things that we need. We need a new stage. So whatever tugs at your heartstrings, I would encourage you to write an additional check for whatever that amount is. and it would go to the greater good of this spiritual community. So let's all say the offertory blessing together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give and all that I choose to receive. Let's sing our thanks. Sing thank you, God.
Thank you, God, for opening our hearts and for all we feel. We carry you with us as we leave this place, knowing a love that's so real. Here in this moment, we stand in our truth. We welcome the peace that it brings. God, as you guide us, renew and remind us that you are the reason we sing. God, as you guide us, renew and remind us that you are the reason we sing.
Amen to that. Let's all stand. Sherry, will you lead us in the prayer for protection?
I will.
All right.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. All is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. We are truly blessed. We are truly blessed.
All right, we'll see everybody Saturday for the Fall
Saturday.
Fest and next Sunday for a regular service. Bye, everybody online. See you. Please eat cake.